Let's talk about Hitler.
That'll make sense later.
I'm immaculately conceived.
I don't know what to do.
I swear I'm not stupid.
Take it or leave it. Sometimes you just want to leave it.
If I gotta borrow my mom's underwear, I'm borrowing her underwear.
You just, yeah.
Misa likes the Jar Jar Binks.
I'm not gonna edit it out.
Oh no.
I don't know. Like, I think it was pretty great. Just staying on the
Sucks to
planet.
suck.
Why are you saying it with a question mark?
Clap, bitch.
All right. 3, 2, 1. Action.
And we're live. I'm Anna.
And I'm Jessica.
And this is Why Are You Yelling? Welcome back to another F1 race review. Today we are going to be reviewing and recapping and analyzing round 10 of the 2025 Formula One season, the Pirelli Grand Prix du Canada. Our track was the Circuit Gilles Villeneuve.
Good job.
Yay, I got it. Okay.
I heard it enough this week that I was like, oh, I did say it right. And I was so paranoid that I had said it wrong last time. And then I just heard them say it over and over and over and over.
I wonder if like the F1 TV commentators and stuff, if they just have so much practice saying all the names of the tracks and the circuits and the cities, because they just don't even hesitate. They're spitting it out. And I'm like, okay.
And I'm like, oh, well then. Okay. Guys, this is rough. It's hot in here.
Yeah.
It's not as hot as it was at the other place, but whatever.
Oh yeah, we moved our studio.
Yeah,
Surprise!
we moved. Yay!
Everything looks a little bit different. You might be able to tell or not. Look, it looks different.
On air now.
It only took us 3 days.
That's actually a record.
Yeah.
We've moved this set 3 times now.
Yeah. This is the fastest we've ever done it.
Yes.
By far.
100%. Like, I'm really proud of us.
We touched up our walls.
Yeah. It was phenomenal, actually, what we got done in 3 days, but we won't bore you with that because you don't care. Okay. So our podium was George Russell, Max Verstappen, and Kimi Antonelli.
Ayo.
I'm so proud of him.
Our little baby Kimi.
He's a little baby. He's precious. So our constructor standings now, we have McLaren at number 1 with 374 points, and now Mercedes is number 2 with 199 points, overtaking Ferrari. Ferrari has dropped down to 3rd with 183 points. Red Bull is 4th with 162 points. Williams is 5th with 55 points. It goes from hundreds of points to like half that. Haas is 6th with 28 points. Racing Bulls is 7th with 28 points as well, so they're tied. Aston Martin is 8th with 22 points. Kick Sauber is 9th with 20 points. And Alpine is 10th with 11 points. So
So for constructor standings, I would assume that if you'd have 2 constructors that are tied in points, they then go to like whoever has the most like first place finishes, second place finishes, third, and then it just keeps going down, right?
I'm assuming it's like this right now because whoever reached that number first is what whoever had 28 points first is what I'm assuming is.
I know for a fact that for the drivers standings, it's based on if they're tied exactly. It is based on who has more first place finishes, and then if they're tied on that, it goes to second place. If they're tied on that, it goes to third place.
Yeah, I don't know.
So I would think maybe the constructors are similar, but who knows?
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Someone let us know if you know. Yeah. Put it in the comments because I'm curious.
If you know,
how do we break ties in constructor standings, like to know who would get above the other?
Let us know in the comments, or maybe I'll research and come back next time.
Maybe
we'll see. Oscar Piastri is still leading the drivers' championship, and now he has a little cushion against his teammate Lando Norris because Lando got a DNF. So
he had a little oopsie.
Yeah, he had an oopsie, so he gained no points, and that has allowed Oscar to just kind of get a little bit of a gap from him. And yeah, that was very interesting.
And now it's time for our fun facts. The first one is that the Canadian Grand Prix previously finished under a safety car in 1999 and in 2014. So apparently, and it did in this one as well in 2025. So apparently you can finish a race under a safety car.
Wow.
That would have been nice to know circa 2021.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds to me like they had already established you could do that with the years being 1999 and 2014. Just interesting.
Good to know. George Russell's win was his 4th Grand Prix victory ever. And he is the 4th different Grand Prix race winner this season.
That was a trend last season where every single time it felt like we were getting a we have this many winners. We have this many winners. And I'm like, oh, shit.
Yeah, there was a stat last year that like it was the most like different number of race winners in the like first, I want to say like half of the season or something. Where it was just very like back and forth. I want to say it was like 6 or 7 different race winners.
Yeah, it was a lot.
So this was Mercedes' 5th victory in Montreal, but the first for them by any driver other than Lewis Hamilton. And George Russell has now finished on the podium more times this season than in all of last season. So he's finished on the podium 5 times so far this season, and last season he only finished on the podium 4 times. I feel like it was more for some reason.
Yeah.
But I guess not.
I guess not.
George Russell is the 9th consecutive Canadian Grand Prix winner from the front row of the grid.
Okay, cool.
Moving on to Max Verstappen, his P2 finish for Red Bull ended his streak of 3 consecutive Canadian Grand Prix wins. So.
And George Russell yoinked it.
Yoinked
it away.
Max has reduced his championship deficit to Oscar Piastri down to 43 points. Red Bull are now 4 races short of Ferrari's all-time record of 81 consecutive points finishes. That's kind of crazy.
He's how many away?
Red Bull. So Red
Bull.
How
many?
You're like because Max is the only one.
Yeah, no, I was like, I knew.
Yeah. So Red Bull is now 4 races away from Ferrari's all-time record of 81 consecutive points finishes.
Okay.
Russell and Verstappen finished 1-2 for the 3rd time, but it is the first time Russell's been the winner. The other 2 times were in Belgium 2021 and Netherlands 2022. Moving on to our other Mercedes podium finisher, Kimi Antonelli in P3 becomes the 3rd youngest podium finisher of all time behind Max Verstappen and Lance Stroll. So Kimi got his first podium at 18 years and 294 days old.
I hate that. I hate anytime somebody's like, my baby's 14 months old. My baby's 136 months old. I get that for the stat it matters, though.
Yes.
Wait, so how old was Lance Stroll? I don't even. That
would have been under 19.
Literally
the fact that he's even ever finished on a podium, I'm just like,
no.
When?
I mean, the fact that he was clearly so young is what's happening. I'm like, oh, I wouldn't have expected that.
I need to know this now. Hold on.
I'm like, wait a minute.
So this would have been early in his career. So in 2017, he finished 3rd, becoming the youngest rookie to achieve a Formula One podium, I guess at the time. Maybe at the time?
Lance Stroll finished 3rd at the 2017 Azerbaijan Grand Prix at the age of 18 years and 239 days, making him the 2nd youngest driver ever to achieve a podium finish after Max Verstappen. So now he is the 3rd, right? Or how old was Kimi? 19?
18 and 294 days.
94. Oh, okay.
Yes. Kimi is behind Max and Lance. He's the 3rd youngest.
Okay, yeah. So that's what it was. So he finished 3rd in 2017, and he was 18 years old, 239 days. I just wouldn't have assumed that stat.
Okay, so his first podium he got when he was racing for Williams, and his other 2 podiums in 2020 he got as part of Racing Point.
Okay. Interesting.
So Kimi Antonelli is the first Italian to finish on the podium since Jarno Trulli at the 2009 Japanese Grand Prix.
Wow.
And Mercedes, as we mentioned, move into 2nd in the team's championship after losing that spot to Ferrari in Spain.
Come on now, man.
Moving on to McLaren.
I can't.
Oscar Piastri finished P4 for McLaren, and it marks the end of his 8-race podium finishing streak. So he was 1 short of McLaren's all-time record set by Lewis Hamilton in 2007 of finishing on the podium.
So he didn't break it, is all I heard.
He was 1 short.
Aw. Well, it's just not time for that to be broken yet.
He was 1 short of, I think, meeting that record, not breaking it.
Ooh, even better. Love you, Oscar, but I'm not ready. Not ready.
Oscar extends his championship lead by 22 points over teammate Lando Norris. Speaking of Mr. Norris, the Piastri-Norris collision was a replay of the one between then McLaren teammates Lewis Hamilton and Jenson Button in the 2011 Canadian Grand Prix.
Well.
Yeah, history repeats itself, I guess.
Yeah, we just watched that clip, which I don't think I can throw up on here, but we can include like a link to go show it to you. That's pretty similar.
It's very identical. Like literally the two of them coming alongside each other, and then the one in the back tries to go around this way on the track and gets kind of squeezed into the barrier towards it, and then barely touches the car in front, and then the whole front wing comes off. Like
it looks like almost exactly the same. You know what I wonder? I wonder what the penalty was for that compared to what happened.
Yeah.
What's that? I need to know that. Okay.
So we're back. We Googled.
We had a research break because we're poor and don't have anybody to do it for us while we're talking.
And we really needed to know. But apparently when Hamilton and Jensen, I don't know why I said Hamilton and last name, first name. When Hamilton and Button collided in 2011, Button did not receive a penalty for that collision. But for the 2025 race and the collision between Oscar and Lando did get a post-race penalty. But he didn't get points on his license.
Yeah, he got a 5-second post-race penalty. But yeah, no points. Interesting. I mean, it's so similar. We'll put the link down there because we can't show it in here. But it's so identical. It's crazy. Like, I was very surprised.
The front wing getting ripped off.
I mean, just all of it.
The fact that Lewis had to retire the car, but Jensen went on to win, but he continued the race just like Oscar continued the race. That's crazy.
Did Jensen Button win that race?
Yeah, said he won.
Wow.
And with the collision in Lando Norris's retirement, that means that he failed to reach the checkered flag for the first time since Austria last season, which Austria last season was when he collided with Max Verstappen.
With his best friend. That's crazy. The lore.
Yeah.
The lore.
It writes itself, bruh.
Crazy.
So moving on to our Ferrari boys, Charles Leclerc took P5 and has beaten teammate Lewis Hamilton in 9 of the last 10 Grand Prix this season.
That feels unnecessary to say. It feels like there's 100 other fun facts. This is not fun.
I thought it was pretty fun.
Did you?
I did.
I thought it was fun that he got 5th. The rest of it could have lived without.
Lewis Hamilton finished in P6 and has thus has thus failed to score a podium finish in the opening 10 races of the season for the first time in his 19 seasons in Formula One.
Moving on. I'm sorry, he can't understand what the man on the radio's saying. I can't.
It's not his fault.
No, it's not. Whatever, man. I'm one of those.
Fernando Alonso finished P7 for Aston Martin, which means he has scored in consecutive races after being pointless for the first 8 Grand Prix of the season.
I don't like how that's worded either. I hate that's something that that's not the first time that has been worded that way. And I'm like, without points is way better than pointless.
He is pointless.
Like, I hate that. But
Your existence, pointless.
I'm like, oh my God, that's so but why?
After being without points.
I feel like that's just as fine. Like, that gets the point
just
across.
Just as fine.
Just as good, just as fine. Like, say it again. Just say that again and tell me that doesn't sound nuts.
Fernando Alonso's P7 for Aston Martin means he has scored in consecutive races after being without points in the first 8 Grand Prix of 2025.
Before, it was after he was pointless.
After being pointless.
Like, oh, I was happy about that. I was like, yay!
Let's go, Alonso. And, I mean, it looks like maybe Aston Martin has turned a corner, or are they... It feels like they found some improvement. I mean, I know Alonso was super, happy with the car.
I mean, Stroll he finished 17th, so...
Well, he also was recovering from a hand surgery that he was not wanting to talk about whatsoever in the media.
I actually felt bad for Lance.
I did too. He is never that enthusiastic when he participates in the couple of press conferences I've seen him in. He generally is very low energy and gives off I really don't want to be here sort of vibe.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, in this particular pre-race press conference that they did, it was just, I mean, people kept asking about his hand, and he I think in the politest way possible was trying to tell them, it's my medical history, it's personal, and I'm not going to go into detail about it. He was giving them the information, the bare information that they needed.
Yeah.
And they kept asking him, oh, well, what, like to go into detail about like, well, what was the pain like? And when did you know there was a problem? And, oh, what's your recovery been like? And do you have a plan in place? It's like these invasive.
Well, they're just trying to figure out what it is.
Yeah.
So they're like, what does the pain feel like? Because they're like, is it nerve? Was it a bone? Was it this? What was it? They're like, how long have you had it? Like, what race did he get it? So then we can go watch his onboards and figure out what did he do and what the injury could be. But it's just
so
like,
invasive.
It's at the point where it's like, he had a hand injury. He had surgery for it. Fuck off.
He did break his hand. I believe he broke his hand a couple years last season. It was like in a skiing accident or something. It was before the season started, I think.
Oh, I don't know.
Or maybe it was on a break.
I don't know.
Hold on, quick fact check. Oh, it was cycling. It wasn't skiing. Oh, so this was in 2023. Yeah, I remember him getting injured. So he fractured both wrists and broke a toe during a cycling accident. And he underwent surgery on his right wrist.
Didn't he say, though, that he had an injury since a certain race, though, in that press conference? That he'd been having issues with it since a certain point last year?
Well, yeah, it was recurring pain.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, is not uncommon. Once you break a bone, even if it heals, it's significantly, like, percentage-wise, more prone to injury than it was before it was broken.
Yeah.
It's more prone to breaking again, or there could be nerve issues. I mean, there's all sorts of things it could be. I mean, you had your finger thing.
It's still numb to this day right here.
Yeah, you
Oh yeah, that's right. I had a I might cut this out, but we'll see. Long story short, my dog broke my finger by accident when his leash got wrapped around my finger, and then he pulled, and it literally broke my, I don't know what camera. This finger, like, literally went like this, like, and just completely broke. And
then went to, like, the side.
The side, yeah. And so when it healed, though, a bone fragment was constantly poking, because, I mean, you can't really get a cast on your finger.
No. They can splint it to try and help it heal straight, but other than that.
But I didn't have health insurance, so I didn't do that at the time.
Yeah.
So
you could self-splint, but there's no guarantee you're going to set it right.
Yeah. So when it healed, I had a bone that, like, a little tiny fragment that just, I guess, healed, like,
stuck out a little,
and it kept hitting this nerve. So I had to have hand surgery, and they shaved it off. But to this day, now it's numb, but it felt a lot better. I mean, I could literally just touch it too hard, now I'd scream.
Do you have a scar on your finger?
Yeah. But anyway.
But that's just to show that, like, injuries, it's not just like a quick fix. And especially when you break things, it's like you can have recurring problems after the fact. I mean, it could be like he broke his hand and they did surgery to correct it. And it could be that if they used any sort of pins to set the bones in place, because there's so many bones in the hand, that it's actually one of the more complex things that if you break it, it's a little more complex to try and treat it and heal it. So, I mean, they could have used pins to set some things in there and to attach things. So a pin could be rubbing up on something. I mean, it could be, like you said, nerves pinching or rubbing. It could be any sort of thing. But the amount of questions that they kept asking, and especially there was one guy, it was one of like the more prominent TV journalists. I forget who it was. It wasn't Crofty. Who's the other one? Brundle. It was one of them, I think.
Brundle is maybe.
It was one of those two that asked the question, I think. But they basically, Lance had already asked or answered several questions about his hand injury at that point. And this particular journalist, when they opened the floor up to questions, he asked Lance, he was like, so Lance, I've noticed that you kept your right hand, the one that was injured. I noticed you kept your right hand in your pocket the whole time and you haven't taken it out during this whole, like, because he had it in his pocket and was holding the microphone with his left hand. And he was asking him, like, is it because that it's injured? You're not wanting to show us? Like, what's kind of going on with that? And then Lance is like,
I'm fucking sitting here with my hand in my pocket, you freak.
Lance takes a second. He takes a beat to answer. And you can kind of almost see on his face that he's kind of like, what the fuck kind of question is that?
Are you afraid to show us your hand? Fuck off,
and
dude.
Then I have so much respect for Lance Stroll because he didn't remove his hand from his pocket even then.
No, because I'm like, maybe some people don't have to. I'm somebody who fidgets a lot. Some people don't. Jealous.
But I was just like, because the easy thing to do, or maybe not the easy thing, but the acquiescing sort of thing to do is when you're challenged like that would be to take your hand out of your pocket and be like, look, you're making a big deal out of nothing. But I like the fact that he didn't remove his hand from his pocket and he was like, no, I'm not going to give you the satisfaction. Like, they were just being so invasive and so many questions. And eventually it got to the point where another journalist asked a question about it. And he literally said, well, I already answered this earlier, but I'll say it again. And like, he summarized, like, I had old hand injury. It started bothering me a couple of races ago. The pain got to the point where I couldn't basically stand it anymore. I went and had surgery. They fixed the problem. I'm good now.
That's just so weird.
And because then they were still asking like, oh, do you think it's going to be recurring? Do you have any reason to think that the pain will come back or that the injury will come back? And all like just so many questions. And I was like, can you leave him alone?
No, literally. What the fuck?
I felt so bad for him. I'm like, it just got to the point where it was just super invasive. And again, I understand that journalists, like their job is to ask the questions and it's on the driver to answer or not answer the questions as they see fit. And they don't have to answer questions they don't want to.
Yeah.
They can just say no comment and move on. But there's a time and a place, and
well, it's like how many times? I just don't see why keep asking the same exact thing over and over again.
Because you think at some point they'll get frustrated and answer the question,
and I'm like,
just to get people to stop asking.
I just wouldn't say anything.
No.
I'm just gonna be silent. I'm literally like, if I just like at that point, if the question's stupid, I'm just gonna be silent, stare at you until you get the picture to move on.
Mm-hmm.
Just because I'm like, I want to make you uncomfortable as you were trying to make me with that question.
I would just say move on.
I would be like, are you sure? Is that what we're going with here?
I would say a common response when you keep getting the same question, especially in a press conference setting, is asked and answered.
Yep.
That question has been asked and it's already been answered.
Asked and answered.
That's so
cunty.
Uh-huh.
I love that.
Uh-huh. I'm like, we got to get a little more cunty, Lance. Come on now.
Yeah. Get in your cunt era.
Back to our fun facts. Kick Sauber's Nico Hulkenberg finished in the top 8 for the 3rd time this season. Way to go, Hulk. Let's go.
Love it.
He's the first Sauber driver to score in consecutive races since Valtteri Bottas in 2022 when he scored in Mexico and Sao Paulo.
That's exciting.
Esteban Ocon finished P9 and he scored Haas's best ever Montreal race finish in the team's 200th Grand Prix.
Wow.
Fun stuff. And it was
nice.
Ocon's 4th Grand Prix points finish of the season. Carlos Sainz finished P10 for Williams, scoring points for the 5th time in the last 6 Grand Prix. And Alex Albon failed to finish, meaning consecutive retirements for him in Spain and Canada. Alex, my guy, we started so strong. What's happening?
That whole thing with Colapinto was weird. I'm like, where were you going?
Oh yeah. I'm like,
but then his car became like a lawnmower, and God, like to see how it bounced.
Yeah, that's right. Mm-hmm. I forgot about that. Yeah. Oh yeah, because at the start of the race, we were talking about how Colapinto was kind of like getting his elbows out and being a little aggressive, and then Alex, yeah, he boom, but he went flying.
He was never making that corner. I don't know what he was doing.
Yeah.
That was nuts.
Yeah, and then I remember Alex eventually kind of just pulling off into like a runoff area.
Mm-hmm. I would assume something from that had done something to the car over time. I mean, that because it was rough.
Mm-hmm. And then our last fun fact, Liam Lawson's retirement was his 3rd of the season for Racing Bulls.
I think Daniel Ricciardo's just cursed the Red Bull seat, and he's cursed that seat next. Yeah. The only way to amend, to make better of this is to heal, is to just bring him back. That's what I mean, that's the only way to cleanse the curse.
You need to like throw some sage.
I don't even think that's enough.
Oh.
It's not enough.
Well then.
It's a powerful curse.
That was the end of our fun facts.
Wow. I feel like this weekend had so much drama going into it already. The first drama was the Max and his penalty and hit the points on his license.
Mm-hmm.
And basically, if you're not aware, Max has one more point. If he gets one more point on his license, he's going to be suspended for a race, basically. So that was a whole thing because he got 3 points put on his license after the issue, like that collision with George Russell. Everybody kept talking about that. Max was getting so fed up with the entire thing. He was like, we get it. Thanks. Like every journalist that could ask Max about that pretty much did, to the point that he was so fed up, he was over it. But the thing that really like surprised me, so we've been hearing about that. I feel like everybody was aware of that. I'm watching the weekend warm up on Thursday, and all of a sudden, like Laura Winter is asking, how do you say his name?
Davide.
How do you say it? Is it Valsecchi? I was going to say Valsecchi, but I couldn't. Okay. She was asking him about the Italian media, and because basically 2 very prominent news outlets were talking about Fred and how they might be getting rid of him, and how Ferrari is super dissatisfied, and talked about Lewis, talked about Charles, and it was just super crazy. And I had no clue about it. I hadn't seen any of this on Instagram. I hadn't seen any of this on like threads. I'd seen it nowhere. So I'm like, what the fuck? And at this point in time, they were 2nd in the constructors. Mm-hmm. And so that was just crazy. And then Lewis was asked about that in the FIA press conference before the weekend starts, because they have 2 separate ones with 3 different drivers in each one. And anyway, they asked Lewis about it. And basically, Lewis pretty much said, I'm here because of Fred. I don't support any decision to get rid of Fred. And I felt like the implication was basically saying, I don't know if I'll be here if there's no Fred. That was sort of how I got it. It felt very like no nonsense. Don't know what this is about. This whole narrative is ridiculous. Charles had briefly talked about it as well, I think. It was just, and then Fred was like, what the fuck? Hello?
Yeah, I mean,
so weird.
Charles and Lewis both have a really great relationship with Fred. They've openly talked about several times. They both were, I mean, Charles started off with Fred as his team principal when he was at Alfa Romeo, formerly Alfa Romeo. I mean, and Lewis has worked with Fred before, so they both really like him, and they were excited when he was brought on to Ferrari. So, I mean, with Ferrari, and Fred even made this comment where, you know, Ferrari has tried changing team principals. They've tried changing drivers. They've tried changing engineers, and it's still not working. So, and he said there's only one thing that haven't changed yet. And he didn't say what it was, but the implication is that it's like the leadership at Ferrari. It's higher up. That hasn't been changed yet.
Yeah. So that was just really weird going into the weekend, because now all of a sudden because I kind of just felt like, okay, it's whatever. And then all of a sudden now all eyes are on Ferrari. And then what was, when Laura had basically asked Davide, like, so, you know, they're saying this is nonsense. What do you say? Because he's Italian. And he had like, this might sound odd, but he seemed like concerned. It was basically like, I think they just need to concentrate on doing well, because if those 2 outlets are saying something, where'd they get that info from?
Especially if they're prominent, well-respected outlets.
The implication was he's like, I'm no like great journalist, but what I'm inferring is somebody's talking from Ferrari. That was like, I don't know. That was just super bizarre.
It would have to be somebody in the know, somebody high enough up that they would be part of those conversations.
That, and also somebody that either of those outlets would have quoted, basically. Like it'd have to be somebody for both of them to basically run a big story on. Like they would have to know that this person is giving them legitimate information. It's not just some nobody at Ferrari saying this. Yeah. So I'm like,
but then why would that person leak that information?
I don't know.
I
don't know. Helmut Marko talks a lot. Do they have was it Helmut Marko? Who was that?
I'm like, there's a conspiracy.
I don't know. That's insane. So that was just so then like kind of all eyes were sort of on Ferrari again, and I just can't even deal with it. So basically, if you watched the race, then you probably saw, and we talked about it a few minutes ago, Lando Norris crashed himself, which was why?
It was so exciting because they were the build up to this moment. It's been building up all season because we keep chomping at the bit. We want to see McLaren fight. We want to see the battle, right? And then this race, we've got, it's like the Jaws thing. It's like dana, 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 dana. It was like, it was just, there was a buildup of like, I mean, let me set the scene for you.
Oh.
We've got Kimi Antonelli in P3. We've got Oscar behind him in P4, getting within a DRS range. We've got Lando Norris in P5. He's in DRS range. He's not. He's in DRS range. He's not. He's getting closer to Lando, or he's getting closer to Oscar. And then it's like, oh, now they're both within, we've got a mini DRS train between the 3 of them. And you've got Kimi Antonelli holding on to P3. And he's got the pressure of the McLarens bearing down on him. And he's got to like defend against them both, right? And then we're like, oh my God, what's going to happen? Lando's got to speed up if he wants to try and overtake Oscar, and Oscar's under pressure from Lando, and he's got to speed up, and he's got to try and make a move on Kimi, but also defend against Lando and make your moment, like make it count and pick the right moment. And then all of a sudden we get side by side, taking the turns, taking the corners, and then it's like a back and forth, and like a Lando overtakes, but then Oscar gets back in front of him and tries to keep it. And then at one point they're kind of side by side, and both of them are within DRS range of Kimi Antonelli. And we're like, oh my God, what's gonna happen? And then we hit a corner. Lando tries to go around and gets he really didn't have anywhere to go. He even didn't even get really squeezed by Oscar. Oscar just took the line that I think anybody would have taken. And then Lando just gets too close to him. Like, it wasn't that he ran out of road. He just got a little too close and then barely tapped the back of him with it, and his whole front wing ripped off. And he like went into the barrier and was able, fortunately, to go into the grass, and the barrier kind of helped anything worse from happening. But it was rough. But to Lando's credit, he immediately got on the radio and was like, my bad. That was my fault completely. Like, just stupid mistake. Sorry.
Yeah, basically he had said he had already like anticipated, mind you, this all happened so fast for them, right?
Mm-hmm.
But basically, I guess from my understanding, from when I was listening to him talk and listening to a few other people talk, I guess he basically assumed Oscar was gonna, I guess he had been taking a particular line the whole time, and Lando had just assumed that's the same line he's gonna take. Oscar went a little bit wider, and that's what happened. But again, it's not Oscar's responsibility to help Lando decide what line he's gonna pick. Because Oscar's in front, he can decide what he wants to do. So yeah, it was just insane, and it's annoying because like I feel for Lando, because I'm like, he was the better, like, outside of that, obviously, where people will be like, well, if he was the better driver, he wouldn't have wrecked. I'm saying when it comes to pace, he was faster.
Mm-hmm. I mean, but that's been a consistent trend.
Yes, and I'm just like, I hope he's not online right now. Just don't get online.
I mean, he seems to have been coping the last several,
I think he said he wasn't online.
Yeah, he said he's been coping better with making mistakes or, that whole thing. And so I think he'll be okay. I
think a lot of it comes down to, like, if Max makes a mistake, I don't think Max then has a crisis of like, I suck. As much as he's like, I made a mistake, it is what it is. And it doesn't mean that I'm a trash driver. It just means I made the wrong choice in that moment. Mm-hmm. And I think that can be a difficult mindset for certain people to grasp when they allow a lot of other people they're looking for outside validation for their inside worth of themselves. And maybe Lando's finally outside of that and can have some confidence in himself. Because I feel like half of it's a confidence issue. Or like, I don't know. And again, I actually really don't know a lot about Lando's career before Formula One. So I don't know a lot about like his feeder series career, and to see, was he somebody who was battling a lot? Like, did he have a lot of, on track battles like that? Like, I don't know. And some of that, I'm like, is that lack of experience in any way? I don't know a lot about Lando's driving style, to be honest. So I'm not sure. It makes me curious to know, like, is the reason he's struggling so bad because he literally just doesn't have any experience battling? Like, I don't know. Mm-hmm. It's just rough. But then if I'm Kimi Antonelli, I'm like, peace out.
For real.
He was like, thank God.
Yeah, so Lando making that mistake ultimately cost him his race, and it cost Oscar, because Oscar did get tapped and it slowed him down some, but he didn't really have any damage. Mm-hmm. But it did cause the yellow flag and safety car to come out, and it cost Oscar the chance to fight for a podium. So he, at that point, the race just finished under the safety car. So,
which amazingly it can do. Wow. So during the safety car, George Russell is first and Max is second. And, they're trying to keep their tires alive, do all that stuff.
In case they somehow did a rolling restart of the race, which they didn't.
And so then all of a sudden, George Russell, like, slams on his brakes. The safety car is so far ahead of him. And then Max, it gets ahead of George for a second before he slams on his brakes. Mm-hmm. He's not allowed to pass George.
Yeah.
So then Max is like, George just slammed on his brakes. And then George Russell over his radio simultaneously is like, Max just passed me.
He just overtook me.
And
which you're not allowed to do and is a penalty.
And would probably be another point. I'm assuming, I actually don't know the rules to that, but I'm just like, so when I saw that, I just thought, that's kind of gross. Because it definitely was intentional. Like, I don't know. And then what was it, at the start of the race or earlier in the day, George had said he has a few penalty points to play with, so we'll see how the race goes or something like that. Mm-hmm. So I'm like, and I know everybody was poking fun at Max with the penalty or with the points on his license thing, and I'm just like, but that whole situation, I don't know, that just feels kind of gross when someone's like a point away from being suspended.
And then you do something like that.
Something like that, like, because that's like clearly intentional and kind of malicious. So I'm like, I wonder if that's good for the children. I like how that's associated with George Russell now as well, that like because of that one thing he said last season, that anytime something happens, it's like, what about the kids, George? Because he had said that. But anyway, so I thought that was kind of gross. But then something that I thought was, so I kept seeing this online as well, was, so like we said, Lando got a penalty after the race, like a 5-second post-race penalty for his collision with Oscar, but no points on his license. And versus Max got 3 points on his license when he hit George Russell in Barcelona. And people were saying the British bias. And like, well, why didn't Lando get a point on his license? Or because he did cause a collision. Well, I don't think they're comparable. I don't think they're the same whatsoever. I mean, this is just my opinion. First of all, Oscar finished the race. He finished. He's fine. Lando just ruined his own race. Did he have contact with Oscar? Yes, but he only really ruined himself. That being said, even though we obviously cannot say with 100% certainty that Max hit George on purpose, I feel like everyone's assuming that, and we're all kind of leaning that way, that he hit George on purpose. I think it was more to do with the intent and the unsportsmanship-like thing of like, Lando didn't mean to hit Oscar.
It leans more toward a racing incident.
Yes. That's what I'm like. That leans more towards a racing incident versus Max hit George.
Yeah, I would have to see what
I don't know the rule book,
the exact rules are and the appropriate penalties that can be given. Because I know certain factors do come into play when you're deciding which penalties to award. And if points on a license or fines are appropriate or not. And it's all dictated by the rules, but also by the steward's discretion.
Yeah.
Because they are given some leeway in certain instances where if they want to, they can, but they don't have to. And I think that I know a lot of times the stewards in F1 the kind of party line is like it's like the results of the infraction, like the results of what happened are not what determine if a penalty is awarded or not. It's like breaking the rule. It's not the result of breaking the rule. It's just breaking the rule in general, so, sometimes it can be like, somebody exceeded track limits and then they got a penalty for that. But some people might argue, well, they exceeded track limits, but they didn't gain an advantage. So why would they shouldn't get a penalty for it in certain cases. And it's like, no, that's not the rule.
Yeah.
The rule is if you do this is what happens as a result.
Which is not probably why a lot of drivers wanted more gravel traps anyway. They're like, just give us those. I don't even like that.
It penalizes you automatically.
Yeah. Like we'd rather do that than have track limits to the point that are so sensitive that it's like, did you really gain an advantage? But no. So I just am like, I don't necessarily, I don't know the rule book by any means. I'm not going to sit here and act like I'm some expert, but if I were to just look at those two instances, I don't see them. I don't think they're very similar besides two cars touched. Max is, as much as I'm like, it was what it was, I still stand by. I think the whole people trying to categorize what he did as using his car as a weapon is insane. But what he did was, if intentional, it was bad sportsmanship. And it's just not how you should act as a driver, no matter how angry you are, because it could have been dangerous. And I mean, it wasn't. And Max is obviously the best driver on the grid and knows how to drive is probably the safest driver, but he knows the limits of his car, is what I'm trying to say. And so I'm like, but it's still, he really couldn't, it turned out fine, but in reality, he didn't know with 100% certainty how George would react in that moment and what George's car, how that could have reacted in that moment. So it could have been something dangerous that happened. Luckily it didn't. So I'm like, yeah, points on the license for that, as much as I like Max, seemed appropriate. But I don't see how I don't feel like we're comparing apples to apples with those two scenarios. It just feels like the next thing that people are somehow and that's the other thing too. It's almost like somehow it's Lando's fault that he didn't get points on his license, like the next narrative for people to hate on Lando with. And I'm like, I don't even think they're really comparable. Like those two instances, whether or not you think what Max did was right or wrong, or you don't care, I don't think they're remotely the same thing.
Yeah, it's like, why are you getting mad at the drivers for the British bias that you perceive the FIA or for F1 or the media to have? Like, it's not the driver's fault that this British bias exists if it does exist.
I'm also like with British bias where I'm like, first of all, who are the stewards? Don't they tell you who they are? Could we go find that?
Well, they're different at every race.
Yeah, I'm saying, but like, don't they like?
I
wonder if you can do. Anyway, I don't know. I just am like, I don't know. That just felt kind of like a weird talking point after the race where I'm like, I don't know that they're comparable though. So that was sort of. I mean, the Kimi getting his first podium was fun. That was super cute. It was like watching watching the podium, watching like Max and George and Kimi. It was like watching two divorced parents be happy for their kid.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was funny because they're like being polite to each other, but you're like,
you hate each other.
You're like, Max is like, I'm gonna fuck you up.
I like that Max just dumped it all down George's like the back of his suit, like all on his neck, and then George is just like, okay.
He's like, thanks, buddy.
Appreciate ya.
But
I did see where Kimi like talked about his relationship with Bono, and Kimi's like, look, I'm a really affectionate person, which I mean, him being Italian, it makes sense. He's very like physically affectionate, like hugs, kisses on the cheeks, like,
yeah.
And he's like, Bono is not. And so it's taken some time for him to like, for us to gel, you know, and for him to be comfortable with me giving him a hug, because he did give him a hug after he got his podium and stuff like that, which is like super cute. But like, it's funny because like you see that picture that's like really well known now with like Toto has his arm around Kimi and like, and Kimi's just like holding on to Toto and they're just like watching the whatever's on the screen together.
Yeah.
And it's like, he's like holding his child.
He is.
And you're like, and it's like, that's the kind of like affection that Kimi was like, Bono's like, not like that at all.
Bono's like, he's
so funny.
That is really funny. The only other thing that I saw was I know Red Bull, I guess, protested Mercedes after the race, but nothing came of it.
Yeah, basically my understanding is that they called George in and asked him to kind of explain and his side of it, and basically George was able to explain point by point how like what he did was actually by the rules. And after the stewards took into consideration that and then they rewatch onboard footage, they're like, yeah, no, he was doing what he was supposed to do. And because George basically like, well, I'm trying to keep the delta between me and the safety car. He's like, at one point, he's like, I needed to slow down. And because apparently at one point he gives like a speed up sort of gesture, like trying to, like, you know how when you're like, come on now to the safety car, because it was going too slow. And at one point, George said that he went to slow down, but you can see him checking his mirror and like beside him to make sure Max isn't directly behind him before he hits his brakes and slows down. And it's not his responsibility to even like keep track or make sure of where like Max is. Like it's Max's job to keep the delta in position behind George. So, but basically he just gave all these reasons point by point. But like what he did was by the rules and he wasn't like brake checking Max or trying to catch him out. I mean, fair enough. The stewards agreed with him. And so yeah, it is what it is.
It is what it is. Yeah, that was pretty much that. And I guess they asked Toto about it during the F1 red carpet premiere, the movie premiere in New York. And then Toto's like, it's gross. They waited so long to do it afterwards. And like, he was just, you know how they are. You know how him and Christian, they're little terriers. Yeah,
or one of them. What did they call him last year? I think Toto Wolff. He's called Christian a terrier.
Yeah.
Like,
and then I think Christian's like, those are great dogs.
But Christian's kind of been not super talkative or like in the media much this season, other than like at the very beginning there was some helmet Marco stuff. But after the whole Liam Yuki swapping seats bit, like I haven't really seen or heard from Christian.
Yeah.
Much when they were previously like it's almost every week.
Yeah.
I wonder if that was intentional of them being like, okay, Red Bull's like, okay, we're getting too much bad press. Like we need to shut up.
Probably. I mean, they it's their own fault.
Yeah.
Did you see, which I think this is, I'll fact check this. Did you see that like Max was like, yeah, I'm not going to the F1 premiere because I'm going to spend time with my kid. And then he's like, just kidding. I'm at a racetrack.
Well, we don't.
She could have been there.
She could have been there.
That's what I said. I was like, she could have been there.
We don't know that. But you mentioned the F1 movie. And I keep referring to it as the F1 movie, but the actual title of it is F1 the movie. Is anyone calling it F1 the movie?
I mean, I don't know.
The F1
I honestly
movie.
didn't know. Truth be told, I didn't know if it had an actual title. Like
F1 was
I low key assumed that there was a title, That I was just calling it the F1 or F1 the movie.
The F1 movie.
I just assumed there was a title.
I think the F1 movie was like the working title, and then people you assumed they were going to pick an actual title, and no, they just went with F1 the movie, and I'm like, that feels lazy. I wish they would have picked something different.
I wonder if they have to pay so much to just even use F1.
It's the official F1 logo that they're using. And they obviously would have done everything in partnership with F1.
Yeah.
Because the way they filmed everything.
Yeah.
You know, and even having the drivers appear in the movie, which I really want to go see it.
It's going to be, honestly, I'm going to say it now. I don't have high hopes for this movie whatsoever, but I think that the way it's filmed will be great. And as like movie nerds, I think we'll really enjoy like seeing how it was filmed and the technique, just because it's something that's never been done before. I think that side will be super interesting. I don't have high hopes for the plot. And that's okay.
I really want to see the cameos of all the actual drivers. Like, I'm excited to see that.
Excited. Yes, I'm excited for that because I'm like, oh, I think Daniel Ricciardo will be in it.
Yeah. And I saw someone kind of compare it to like if you're an actual like fighter pilot and you know a lot about airplanes and all that stuff, and then you go and see like Top Gun, which I really love. Top Gun Maverick. I've seen that movie multiple times and I enjoy it a lot. They've compared it to like if you're just a general fan of like film or the way things are filmed and you know, action flicks and stuff like that.
Yeah.
They were like, if you're just a general fan of that kind of stuff, you should enjoy it. But it would be like if you're a super F1 fan and really about the racing and stuff, it would be the equivalent of if you're like a fighter pilot going to watch Top Gun. Like, you're going to be like, you have to, it's a different thing. It's not like a documentary. It's not an onboard of a race. It's a movie. So you have to approach it that way. You can't be nitpicking, oh, well, this isn't accurate and this isn't right. And why would you do this? Blah, 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 blah. You can't nitpick it.
We'll see.
With Lewis Hamilton as a consultant and a major part of helping steer the direction of...
Wasn't he a producer?
I believe so. But with him being a consultant on this film, and they consulted several different people. They consulted Will Buxton, Ruth Buscum. You would think that they would make it as accurate to the sport as they could.
Yeah, he is a producer.
But again, you kind of have to go into it understanding that it's a different thing.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll just see. We can go ahead and hop into our rookie report.
Yes.
Kimi Antonelli, he qualified 4th. He finished 3rd. So he got 15 points. He got off to a strong start with a bold move on Piastri that set the tone of his race. He held 3rd for most of the run, even challenging Verstappen at times, and came under heavy pressure from Piastri in the closing laps. With impressive composure, he defended his position to claim his first career podium, becoming the 3rd youngest driver ever to stand on the podium.
Woohoo!
Go, Kimi! Isaac Hadjar, he qualified 9th. He finished 16th, so 0 points.
Wah, wah.
Hadjar was aiming for a one-stop strategy, but his tires gave out late in the race, forcing an early switch to softs just before the safety car was deployed. The timing cost him positions and brought an end to his streak of top 10 finishes. So, womp womp.
We'll get him next time, champ.
Yeah, I just feel like that's just one of those weird things that happened. I don't think that'll be a trend for Isaac. I think he's proven thus far that he is the most consistent rookie. He's performed the best overall, consistently across the board.
Literally just a strategy problem.
Yeah.
They chose the wrong strategy.
Yeah. Franco Colapinto, he qualified 12th. He finished 13th, so 0 points. Colapinto's race fell apart pretty early after losing a spot to an aggressive move from Hülkenberg. His first pit stop dropped him into traffic, and from that point on, he just couldn't recover or break back into the top 10. He did have his elbows out early in the race, which, if you recall, that's when Alex kind of lawnmowered, or he used his car as a lawnmower on the grass. So he was a little more aggressive than we were used to seeing him, so that was good to see. So hopefully he can take that energy into Austria. Ollie Behrman qualified 14th. He finished 11th, so 0 points. Haas attempted a one-stop strategy for Behrman and Ocon, but Behrman in particular spent much of the race caught in traffic. He switched to softs under the late safety car in case there were going to be any more racing laps, which there weren't. So it didn't really change anything. So he just finished right outside the points. It's all right. Gabriele Bortoleto, he qualified 16th. He finished 14th, so 0 points. He finished 14th after a challenging race where he spent most of it fighting in the midfield. He ran a long stint on the hards, hoping for a safety car that came way too late to make a difference. Basically, he pushed early to stay ahead of the quicker cars, and it hurt his tires and limited his pace. But he felt there was more potential and remains focused on learning and improving each weekend. Like we said earlier, too, Hülkenberg performed pretty well with these new upgrades. Bortoleto has some proving to do at this point, I think. At this point, I think we had a lot of benefit of the doubt because of he's in a Sauber, but I think at this point, we have, he's kind of like a prodigy. It's time to start prodigying. I don't know, man. So Liam Lawson, he qualified 19th. He did not finish. He had as a DNF, so 0 points. Liam had to start from the pit lane after taking on a new set of power unit components, and unfortunately, he also had to park the car because of his power unit. So something is going on there that clearly Racing Bulls are going to have to investigate and figure out what the issue is. So no points for Liam. And our last rookie, Fernando Alonso, qualified 6th. He finished 7th, so he got 6 points.
Woohoo!
It was interesting early in the race. Alonso chose not to even try to fight Lando too hard. Like we were just like, oh, he just let him go by. Mm-hmm. I think he just knew who his fight was with, and it wasn't him. So he didn't fight Norris, but he was running well inside the top 10. A pit stop dropped him into traffic, forcing him to manage his race carefully, but he stayed clean and climbed back to finish a season best P7. So 2 races in a row, Alonso has points. Let's keep it up. And that is it for the rookie report. Guess we can move on to our best and worst. Who's your best?
My driver of the day was Kimi Antonelli.
I knew it was, and that's why I had to change. That was going to be mine, but I changed it.
He got his first podium. He's a rookie. He qualified P3, managed to hold on to P3. He was defending really well against an Oscar, and eventually both McLarens bearing down on him. It was just really impressive, and I'm like, good on you, Kimi.
I couldn't choose Kimi because she did, but I chose Max. Because everybody was giving him shit. Like, it was like everyone was like, well, Max, you're fucked because at this point you've got so many points on your license, you're bound to get another one because you're you. And Max was like, fuck you and fuck you and fuck everybody. And kept it clean.
Yep. Had a really solid weekend.
Yeah. Had a good weekend. Kept it clean. Told some journalists off, which I enjoyed. And, that was it.
Yeah.
So go Max.
So my biggest letdown of the weekend, I kind of had 2 that I could pick from. So
mine's Lando Norris.
Okay.
I was like, oh, I only got one. Pick your other one.
So I will go then with Ferrari's strategy.
That was going to be my other one, but I think I did them not too long ago, just Ferrari.
Yeah, so I'll go with the Ferrari strategy. I mean, I think initially they were trying to go for a one-stop, but then they called Charles in, but he's on the radio like, I don't agree with this. Why are you trying to pit me? That I just told you the tires are fine. I think Charles really was still trying to make it a one stop, and Ferrari decided that they were going to make it a 2. And then it was just the clown show again of just Ferrari just not. And I think we talked about last time when we were talking about the strategy struggles and communication problems, where it's like, as a team, when you're coming up with a strategy, you have to take the driver's input into account. And yeah, okay, maybe at that point in the race, the strategists were seeing something and the engineers were seeing something that Charles didn't know about. Mm-hmm. But there does come a point where if it happens so often, there's a breakdown in trust, with the driver, with their team. When it's like, if your team is consistently and making a trend and a habit of getting the strategy calls wrong, even when especially when you're questioning them in the middle of them making the wrong choice, there's a breakdown in trust there. And eventually I would think as a driver, and up to now, Charles has very much been a team player and Ferrari is my boss. And when my boss says we do something, we do it. I can give pushback and tell them I don't think it's a good idea. But at the end of the day, if they still insist, it's like, you got to do what your boss tells you. Right. But I think there may come a point when, and we saw Carlos Sainz, over his time with Ferrari, was not afraid to tell Ferrari, no, we're not doing that.
Yeah.
And it ended up with him being successful in the race. Multiple times where it ended up that Carlos made the right call. And he was not afraid to question and then tell them, no, I'm not doing that. Because if you tell your driver to come in and they don't come in,
or your driver goes, I'm coming in.
Yeah. You got to be ready. So it's ultimately down to the driver if they're going to listen or not. And I think that some drivers are more or less willing to listen depending on who they are in history with the team. But I would not be surprised I think it could go either way with Charles. I think he could get to a point where he's so frustrated that he's just like, fuck it, I'm doing what I want because y'all are clowns. Or I could also see him being so ingrained into the Ferrari way that he can't bring himself to go against them ultimately.
Yeah, I'm hoping that's where Lewis will step in. Lewis is the most successful Formula One driver there ever has been. And at this point, did you sign him just for like bells and whistles and look, we signed Lewis Hamilton. No, you signed Lewis fucking Hamilton, baby. Like,
and for his expertise as a driver and to help you change your team. Because at this point, what you're doing, it ain't working, baby.
No.
So if you're going to bring on a 7-time world champion, I would imagine it's not just for the extra money that it's going to give you and bump up your stock, price. You have to.
That's like hiring the most decorated war general and then not listening to them when it comes to strategy. Like, you literally have hired the most decorated Formula One driver. If he's saying something's not working, take his word for it. I think he knows what the fuck he's talking about. And so I feel like I think Lewis is gonna have to go just fucking lay the hammer down.
And we talked about last time too how when Lewis was with Bono at Mercedes, they had developed a trust with each other to where they actually respected each other's opinions. And Bono would ask Lewis, "What do you want to do?" Or would ask very targeted, specific questions, because the answer to that then would dictate what they chose to do with the strategy. It's like, use your driver to help you decide your strategy. Get information from them. You can't just stare at the screens and what everyone else is doing. Like, you need driver input.
Yeah. And I don't know. I know during the course of the race, there's a lot of radio messages we don't hear. But that aside, I'm just like, clearly there's a trend where there's some whatever's happening over that pit wall ain't working.
Every time I hear Charles get on the radio and say, I don't think we should do this. I don't understand why we're doing this. I don't understand that choice. Every time he says that, that tells me that they're not communicating with him and telling him why they're doing things.
Yeah.
Because if your driver doesn't understand why you're doing something.
Yeah, it's not going well. My biggest letdown was Lando Norris because he had the pace, should have just been smarter. And that's what it was.
He chose the wrong side of the track to go on. He could have went left or right.
He just was, I think he was just getting antsy. He was getting impatient. He made the wrong choice and, he paid for it. So hopefully at the end of the day, it's something to learn from. Won't happen again.
Yep.
Well, now that just leaves us with our next race teaser, which I didn't fill out the top of for round 11. Uno memento. It's
the MSC Cruises Austrian Grand Prix. The circuit is the Red Bull Ring.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
So,
that's the only part that I filled out.
Perfect. She's got it. So, last year, our main race result was George Russell, Oscar Piastri, and Carlos Sainz.
And this is the same race is this the one where Lando and Max crashed out? And
has to be because Max, because Max ended up finishing 5th and then Lando was out of the race completely.
Yeah. So this is the one that George scooped up. He was just sitting in 3rd, watching all the action unfold, and he was like, okay, I guess I'll get first.
Yep.
And so for the sprint race, our top 3 finishers were Max Verstappen, Oscar Piastri, and Lando Norris.
Nuts. So some information about the Red Bull Ring. The first GP was held in 1970. It is 71 laps. The circuit length is 4.318 kilometers, which equals about 2.6 miles. The race distance is 306.452 kilometers, which is about 190 miles. The lap record was set by Carlos Sainz in 2020 at 1 minute and 5.619 seconds. It has 3 DRS zones, and the Red Bull Ring is pretty short, but it has plenty of action. The first half of the lap is all about power, with 3 straights broken up by a pair of uphill right-handers. From there, the track flows downhill through a fast twisting section, a roller coaster run, capped off by the thrilling Rhint corner, named after Austria's first Formula One champion. So I said it 2 different ways. Hopefully one of those was correct. So my biggest thing anytime I look at these is I just want to know, can I overtake here? Because I'm just trying to go ahead and mentally prepare for what I'm about to watch. Yes, this is a track where you can overtake. It features a combination of long straights and tight corners that create opportunities for passing, especially at turn 1 and turn 3, not to mention 3 DRS zones. So hopefully this will be a fun, action-packed race. So
It was last year.
It was. So we shall see.
Yeah, very excited.
But that about wraps it up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I guess, do we want them to leave anything in the comments for us?
Let us know who your best and worst of the weekend was, and I guess that's it.
Yep. We will talk at you next time.
That's it. Bye.
Bye.